Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time I'm joined by Derek Binder and Ash Paulson to discuss even more about Nintendo going mobile. So let's get started. Alright guys, so we've already discussed this, or at least me and Derek did, but we haven't had you on, Ash. I know you had some things to say about this. On top of that, some more news came out. Time had a really good interview with Iwata about this whole thing. And it gave us more time to chew on it instead of having like 15 minutes to think about what to say and then comment on it immediately at 6 a.m. in the morning when I've had no sleep. So I figured it'd be fun just to go over our thoughts since then and everything that's come out since. So let's go and start off with you, Ash, but I know you really wanted to be on our initial discussion.
As usual, the internet is overreacting in a negative way to anything Nintendo does. Just as true as the sky is blue or the sun is hot, the internet's angry at Nintendo for doing anything. And honestly, if you're a fan of Nintendo or a fan of playing games on their consoles, this is only good news. Nintendo is only doing the right thing for their bottom line and for their overall future. And I guess I know why people are so angry or, worried about Nintendo going mobile, but it's not like they're going mobile exclusively. This isn't them going the way of Sega saying, okay, we're done. I mean, and of course Sega makes console games too, but this isn't Nintendo giving up. This is just them doing something that makes a lot of sense to expand their already huge war chest so that they can continue to make their own games on their own terms. Mm-hmm. And we even saw that with the fact that Iwata announced the new NX platform, which has nothing to do with them going mobile. It's their next dedicated console / handheld, whatever it ends up being. It's their next dedicated gaming platform. So there's really nothing to be upset about.
That's it. This is just in addition to their main business. It seems like the reaction has been, all over the place online. And I guess some people's concerns, like I know Wired or Chris Kohler over at Wired did an article which basically treated this whole thing as like a slippery slope, suggesting that, by Nintendo going mobile, that perhaps one day that's all they'll focus on, which, there could be something to it. But here's the thing, right? If Nintendo doesn't do this now, they may not be around for it to even get to that point in the future. Like, it's clear that their fundamental business has been eroding to some degree over the past, I mean, you could even say decades, I guess. And it's gone to the point where they have to change things up. And they're finally doing that. And I think it's exciting, because it allows them, as they said, and as you said, Ash, like, for now, they are staying in the course. They did announce their next system, which they plan to show off or talk more about next year, at least. And they are very much dedicated to staying in the same business they have while expanding upon it. So I think, yeah, this is only good news to me. Like, it allows them to stay relevant in an ever-changing industry while continuing to make the games that people love them for.
I find it interesting that you brought up Sega during that whole little bit there, Ash, because I saw a couple of really dedicated Sega fans like Codename NX on his Twitter sort of bemoan the fact that Nintendo seems to be getting a free pass and lauded by a lot of people for going mobile. And meanwhile, Sega is doing a similar thing where they said we're going to redouble our focus on mobile and still do like console and PC business, but definitely focus more on the mobile side of things. And then they have Sonic Runners to back that up, and everybody was like, "Oh no, Sega's dead." And he was like, why is it that Nintendo gets a free pass and people think this is good for Nintendo while people think that the same thing is bad for Sega? And I think there is a bit of a reputation factor in there, but I don't think it's completely like everybody's behind this. Like we're pretty positive about that, but I was also pretty positive about Sega being okay with that. As long as they stick with the console business and keep doing what they're doing, I don't care what they do as far as putting out games. I mean, I personally don't prefer mobile games, but if it helps the company and they do good work, who cares? So I think it's interesting that we have these people who think going mobile is the death knell of these companies when they're really not. I can see why they would think that based on a couple of the other mobile companies that have come and gone. But as Iwata said in that Time interview, it's because they only seem to focus on one title. that one title eventually fades away or fails, then that company's sort of screwed. And Nintendo doesn't have that problem, and even Sega doesn't have that problem, because they have a wide variety of IPs to choose from and sort of, not put the focus on any one of them. So that's another reason I don't think there's any reason to be concerned for Nintendo or Sega in that case.
Well, and I'm going to go so far as to say that a lot of people's negative knee-jerk reactions toward any established game developer going mobile isn't actually based in any sort of, appreciable reality, because what it is that people don't, hardcore longtime gamers don't like mobile games. Just you say the word mobile, and a lot of longtime gamers will recoil and get angry and bristle. And you know what? Whether we like it or not, mobile is by far the fastest growing segment of the game industry. I'm like you, Derek. I mean, I don't play tons of mobile games. There are a few that I like, but yeah, I prefer my handhelds and my consoles. I'm old school like that, but that doesn't mean that it makes sense for companies to ignore what is clearly the fastest growing segment of the market. And in that sense, of course, longtime developers are going to want a piece of that pie. If I was in charge of Nintendo or in charge of making some sort of business decision, I would feel the same way. And that's just, that's where things are going now. Not exclusively, not everything is going mobile, but mobile's here to stay. It's not going to go away. It's not going to disappear, no matter how much any of us want it to. And it makes perfect sense for anyone who wants to make a little more money in the industry, a lot more money actually, to embrace mobile. And so Nintendo honestly should have done this a long time ago. I'm glad they're finally doing it now, not because I want them to make mobile games, but because A, I want them to be financially secure, but B, it shows a willingness that Nintendo has not really shown as yet to evolve and adapt with the times. Nintendo's always been very stubborn. They're almost like the Disney of the game industry. And they've always been very stubborn and set in their ways, and this really shows kind of a forward-thinking willingness to adapt and evolve with the times, and I think that Nintendo needs that to survive in the long run. And again, I don't think Nintendo's going third party. I don't think they're gonna die. None of that's gonna happen. Nintendo's fine. They announced the NX. They're not going anywhere. But this just helps establish that more. Then going mobile just gives them more of a buffer, because they're going to make a ton of money doing it, and that in turn allows them to funnel more money into their own dedicated software and hardware development, which is good for Nintendo fans, and so many people don't seem to get that.
It's interesting because Tom, who's appeared in our discussions before, he just came back from Japan, and when I went there a few years ago, like, a lot of people were playing 3DSs. Like, you would turn the street corner, there'd be like several, tons of people just playing 3DSs. And he was telling me, like, when he just got back like 2 days ago, he was telling me he saw almost no 3DSs this trip. Everyone's playing on their phone. Like, having Nintendo higher ups must be seeing this, and that must be scaring the crap out of them.
Yeah, really.
Seeing, like, they can publicly see no one's playing with what used to be something everyone, well, not everyone, but like a ton of people are playing with. So this is something that had to happen. Like, they're really, I said before, they really didn't have a choice. It's either you go out of business eventually, or you start embracing mobile. And it's something that I think a lot of fans also need to realize, it had to happen. This is something that had to change. It's interesting too, they mentioned Disney, Ash. No, were you saying they've been stubborn like Disney in the past, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, well, stubborn and kind of, they kind of play their cards close to their chest. They're very hesitant to make any wide sweeping changes. Now Disney hasn't. They've been better about that recently, especially recently.
That's actually what I was going to comment on, because right, they used to be stubborn, but then they became a powerhouse because they changed and they adapted.
Exactly, which is exactly my point. Is that Nintendo's finally kind of starting to realize, hey, we really need to kind of adapt with the times. It doesn't mean give up what we do so well and what our fans love us for, but it means kind of evolve our business model and add some things to what we used to do so that we can continue operating autonomously. Mm-hmm. Because, like you said, Andre, if they don't, it could end with things going in a way that we, as Nintendo fans, really don't want them to go. Mm-hmm. So, they need to figure out a new way to bring in tons of profits, because as Tom has seen in Japan, and as I saw last year in Japan, not quite to the same degree as he apparently did, but people aren't playing 3DSs en masse like they used to, a few years ago. When I was there last year, I saw kind of an even split between people on their phones and people, playing the 3DSs on the subway. Mm-hmm. But, I've certainly heard that the trend is going toward mobile in Japan, and that fewer and fewer people are playing 3DSs. So, as he said, it's got to scare the crap out of them, and they've got to do something. And there is literally no reason for them not to embrace mobile, because it's just money waiting to be made.
Yeah, I mean, particularly given the fact there are already a ton of Nintendo knockoffs on the App Store. You know, there is a desire for content that Nintendo makes. It should be Nintendo themselves making that content. Like, they should, there already is a market for it. Now they can embrace it, and I think it'll be good for them.
Well, it's sort of insane that you have these like major sites reporting on like, here's an emulator for your phone so you can play classic Nintendo games on your phone, and like, why is that? I always wonder, is that legal to advertise? Because that doesn't seem like on the up and up, really.
Yeah, I mean, the emulators are technically legal, but acquiring the ROMs, of course, isn't legal.
Well, and what's interesting too is that Nintendo in this article, this interview with Time, has said that they're not simply going to port their existing console and handheld games to mobile and call it a day. They're actually dedicated to making original software for mobile. So I don't think what we're going to see is, an official, port of Super Mario Bros. 3 for you to play on your phone, for example. It sounds like they're going to be, leveraging all their IPs to make original software for mobile. And, I think that's pretty exciting. Again, I'm not a big mobile gamer, but I certainly do think Nintendo entering the mobile space will help legitimize mobile for a lot of people. And I certainly will want to check out what they make. So, yeah.
Especially because we now have clarification from the Time interview that it will actually be Nintendo making these games, and not DeNA, which I realize that now I mispronounced before.
Yeah, I guess I have been too. It looked like DeNA to me.
Yeah, that's what it looked to me.
Yeah.
But apparently DeNA.
Okay.
But yeah, so we now know for sure that Nintendo will be the primary producer of these games. Which is reassuring to me, but it was a little bit concerning at first. Maybe like, are these just gonna be a bunch of like Flash style like cheap knockoffs of Nintendo IP? But it seems like that definitely won't be the case.
And anyone who's been looking at their 3DS output and paying a little attention, I mean, look at the games they've released recently, like games like Rusty's Real Deal Baseball and Pokemon Shuffle. They're already they have been clearly experimenting with a mobile free-to-play kind of setup for a while now, and so in that sense, I don't think this decision comes as any sort of surprise.
And they have said too that they're not going to. In the Time interview, they were asked about what kind of like revenue or what kind of games they'll produce, whether like free-to-play or microtransactions, and Iwata did clarify that everything's on the table basically, as we've already seen with those games you just mentioned, like Pokemon Shuffle. But he also did go on to say they won't do anything that damages Nintendo's brand, which I hope means there won't be an emphasis on, just microtransacting you to death,
Yeah.
It makes me wonder what they consider harmful, because I would think that the Pokemon Shuffle model is what they would specifically want to avoid damaging the brand, because that is microtransactions and basically doing that whole Candy Crush idea of trying to get people to pay in order to play more and keep their game going.
That's true.
So I mean, it's still, I don't think as bad as certain other mobile games and what I've heard, the horror stories I've heard, but it is worrisome that they've already sort of gone down that path, and I hope that I hope that's the limit. If they go any further beyond that, I think they do stand a risk of damaging their credibility, because I think Shuffle already did that to a very small extent.
Well, I think what Iwata is talking about when they talk about damaging their IPs is like really extreme stuff, like a version of Pokemon for mobile where you catch a new Pokemon and then before you actually add it to your decks, you get a little pop-up that says, "Would you like to unlock this Pokemon for 99 cents?" And then you can, then you get to catch it. But, stuff like that. I think that's the kind of stuff that Iwata means Nintendo's never going to do with mobile. I don't think they're going to nickel and dime consumers. I mean, I realize that Pokemon Shuffle is starting to go in that direction, but I don't see it going too much beyond that. Nintendo's super careful in everything they do. Maybe too careful.
So you don't think we're going to have Fire Emblem All the Bravest?
No, I definitely do not. And of course, feel free to quote me on that if that ends up being exactly what happens. But no, I mean, Nintendo's pretty careful with a lot of the stuff they do, even if they don't always make the right decisions, in our opinion. But no, this is something I see them taking a very measured approach with. And as long as they do that, and I think they will, it's only good for them and for fans.
Well, since you were on it before, Ash, do you have any expectations or hopes for what kind of games we'll see from Nintendo based on this news?
I hate to kind of theorize too much because I realize that what I say could make a lot of people angry, but let's just put it this way: it's not looking like Nintendo's going to make a console or handheld F-Zero anytime soon, and I feel like F-Zero is the kind of game that might translate pretty well to mobile in terms of something that has a fairly fast development time. You've got the accelerometer in the phone that you could optionally use. There are already quite a few racers on the App Store that remind one of F-Zero, even if they're not quite as good or quite as iconic. So I would love to see a mobile F-Zero. I think if it were done well, but now, of course, I know that's going to piss off a lot of people, saying that. And let me qualify that with: I would much rather see an F-Zero on Wii U or 3DS. I just don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we touched on that a little bit before, but this does, I'm assuming these games won't require the kind of time or budget requirements that most Nintendo games do.
Right.
I'm guessing these would be smaller in scale, smaller in scope, especially if they're supported by, maybe some kind of DLC model. Like let's say it's an F-Zero game where you start off with one car, you can buy other ones, for instance.
Right.
What I like about this is it does allow, presumably, Nintendo to experiment more with older IPs that haven't been seen in quite some time. And they said like all their IP is on the table. Like there's nothing off limits here, which is great. Like that's what I really hope to see. Especially in that it might allow them to bring back some of those older gamers, like 20s to 40s, who grew up in Nintendo or played it years ago and haven't played it since. Because getting a Nintendo system is a commitment. It's it's several $100s. It takes time. You have to go out and buy the games. You can download them now, but it is an investment. And if you can start getting people back by having them play games that they grew up with, I think that is a great start to Nintendo basically expanding. Again, I guess becoming more Disney-like, right?
Right.
Treating their entire portfolio as like an ecosystem.
I mean, basically, like I kind of said before, I don't think people should be panicking and overreacting in such a negative way. I mean, Iwata specifically said that he announced the NX when he did, even though we're not going to get more news on it until next year. He announced it when he did specifically to squash any speculation that Nintendo was exiting the console market or the dedicated hardware market. So really, I mean, even if you're super upset about Nintendo going mobile, you feel like they're selling out, whatever, you still have this whole other completely separate NX announcement to be excited about. So really, it's a win-win. And I don't understand why people are so are just so negative and freaking out about this, because again, even if you're completely against the mobile thing, and I don't think you should be, you've got the NX to look forward to, and that's proof right there that Nintendo is not leaving the dedicated hardware market. The Wii U isn't their death knell, So, and we already knew that. I mean, most, people who think about this stuff in a measured manner understood that Wii U wasn't going to be their last console. But now we have proof. People don't have to worry about it anymore. The Nintendo is doomed talk can, stop for a few more months until it inevitably starts up again. And, it's a win-win for everyone. So really, I think there's a lot to be excited about.
I guess real quick, Ash, since you weren't on the past discussion, what do you have any thoughts about Nintendo announcing the NX in general? I mean, besides being excited for it, like, do you think it's... I mean, I guess we don't know if it's a console or a handheld, so some people would... I saw one article saying how the announcement of the NX is proof, or is Nintendo's admission of the Wii U as a failure. So
I don't think that. I mean that's clickbait. That's a clickbait headline if I've ever heard one. So does that mean that Sony announcing the PS5's admission to the PS4 is a failure? Get out of here. It just means that Nintendo's saying, hey, we're making a new console. It doesn't mean that they're admitting the Wii U's a failure. It just means that, hey, we're making a new console, and obviously everyone knows the Wii U hasn't sold that well, especially compared to its competitors, but I don't think that necessarily makes it a failure in every sense. It's got tons of games that you can't play anywhere else, tons of great games that you can't play anywhere else. So in that sense, as a gaming console with quality content, it hasn't failed in my eyes. Is it a sales failure? Sure. I mean, there are a lot of different metrics by which to measure that. But certainly it has failed in terms of its comparisons to PS4 and Xbox One, purely on a sales level. Mm-hmm. But I think that video game publishers, or I should say Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony, they announce new consoles and or handhelds like clockwork. and it just means that they're looking forward and looking to the future and making a new hardware. It's not an admission that their current or past consoles are a failure. I think that's just clickbait.
Well, no, it's interesting too, because a lot of, well, that article specifically, and a lot of people are treating this as the Wii U successor. And we don't know if that's actually the case, though. I mean,
right.
Do you think it is, though? Do you think this is their next console, or do you think it might be their next handheld? Or do you think they'll ride out the 3DS for as long as they can while they're doing this mobile thing and treat the NX as their next console?
I kind of subscribe to the thought that the NX or their next platform is going to be, I guess, a hybrid, like console and handheld. I'm not exactly sure how that would work yet, but yeah, I mean, it does seem like with the new 3DS, release just, having just released recently, it doesn't seem like they're ready to give up on the 3DS quite yet. Not that they would give up on it, because it's still doing quite well. But it doesn't seem like they're ready to move on from the 3DS quite yet, I guess I should say. So it seems to me that NX is probably going to be a successor maybe to both, or maybe specifically to the Wii U, but it's going to have handheld qualities. It's hard to say, but I don't think we're going to see just a traditional console only setup for the NX. I think it's going to have elements of both mobile or handheld and console.
Yeah, I'm sort of that opinion as well.
I wonder too if well, I guess it's not really a wonder, but Nintendo has this new account management system or whatever that they're working on with DeNA, and I wonder if that's going to play a big role possibly with with this next console or whatever it is. Much as it will, as it seems with every existing thing they're working on. And I'm actually excited by the prospects of that. Like, I'm hoping this is an across-the-board, system that will allow everything to work together, like, seamlessly. Like, I wonder if, for instance, if this would allow games on one platform to interact with say a mobile game, a mobile version of that same game on another. Like, we kind of touched on this, before, Derek. But, with like a fishing minigame for Zelda or something on your mobile phone. But yeah, what if you could, things you do when other games impact another game? I guess, I just feel like that would open up a lot of possibilities for Nintendo. Like, they did say they're looking, to do something unique here. And I feel like leveraging all their systems together, like, under one account, if they do it right, which they haven't so far, like, could really open up the possibility. Like, what if they even made, like, a Nintendo app, right, for your phone? And what if that allowed you to street pass other people without even needing your system? Like, what if it just kept track of where you went? And it's like, hey, you were in other areas that other people who had this game were. Here you go. I think that could be an amazing service if they embraced something along those lines.
The thing that I kind of get excited about with this DeNA, partnership and account system and everything is, I think maybe the idea of a universal virtual console isn't too far off now. Like, kind of the same idea what Sony does with their cross-buy thing. I would love that instead of buying the 3DS virtual console version of Super Mario 3 versus the Wii U virtual console, you just buy Super Mario Bros. 3 for the virtual console, and then you have that on all all your Nintendo devices with a DeNA account, with your one DeNA account. So you can play Mario 3 on your Wii U, you can play it on your 3DS, you can play it on whatever the NX is. I think that kind of a shared universal account system where you don't have to buy the same classic games 2 or 3 times to own them on multiple systems is one of the most exciting possible applications of this new account system, especially because, bar none, Nintendo has the richest history of back catalog games of any developer out there, bar none. So if you finally get, you give your customers a way to play those beloved classic games on any Nintendo hardware they own, whether it's handheld, console, whatever, and only have to buy it once, you're looking at massive sales, in my opinion. I mean, that's something that anyone who's ever played a single Nintendo game is going to want.
That really is the way it should be. The only thing that gives me pause is Nintendo specifically saying that they won't be porting games to the phone. So I wonder if that's in the cards or not. Or
well, that's why I didn't mention mobile. I don't think they're going to port their classic games to mobile.
You think they'll keep it to their own handheld line and console?
Yeah, I mean, I think this DeNA, this partnership in terms of this kind of overall account system that they're replacing Club Nintendo with, it goes beyond just mobile. I think, I mean, it's going to affect their entire hardware ecosystem. So even if they're not, the virtual console thing may not affect mobile, but that can be a completely separate segment of this DeNA partnership that kind of helps connect all of the Nintendo hardware under one umbrella.
I mean, I could totally see it. You know, if they release, let's say they release a simplistic Mario platform for mobiles, maybe along the lines of what Rayman has done, where it's like an auto runner where you tap to jump, basically. Sure. Yeah, they could easily, like, you know, at the end advertise. It's like, hey, do you like this? Go back and play Mario 3. Click here to download it, you know, automatically to your 3DS.
Right.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Like, just simplifying how many steps there are in playing Nintendo games.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways they could just expand this and really just get people interested in Nintendo and try to just keep pushing them towards their platforms, their handhelds, everything, and just keep people notified. Like that Nintendo app, that's kind of a genius idea.
I guess the only other thing I can think of to bring up about this is just how forward Nintendo seems to be recently with their IP. You know, Iwata has talked about this now a few times in wanting to broaden out, and we've now seen this with, you know, with this news of them going mobile, with Nintendo's characters appearing in movies such as Wreck-It Ralph and now the new Pixels movie, and then of course there's the news that Netflix is working on Zelda. Like, this is a pretty huge change for Nintendo. Like, it actually almost reminds me of a way back in the 80s, right? When Mario and Zelda were everywhere. They had their own TV shows, and even a Mario movie. Like, it almost feels like, in a way, a step back to that era.
Well, because I think it's the right time. I mean, I think Nintendo's finally coming around to the idea that people are not consuming entertainment the way they used to in the 90s and the early aughts. I mean, people are consuming Nintendo on all of their devices, or sorry, they're consuming entertainment on all their devices now, and they need to kind of become a part of the wider entertainment atmosphere again for that reason. So I think that's exactly why they're embracing Netflix and you know, film again, and I think it's just, you know, they're realizing that it's not going to cut it anymore to simply make dedicated consoles and handhelds and let that be it, because they're not reaching, you know, they're not reaching all their possible consumers by only doing that. They've got to embrace, you know, a wider platform to interface and engage with their consumers, and I think that's kind of part of why they're doing all this, and I think it's great. Yeah.
The only thing I'm worried about is we have all these ideas, all these like hopes and potential for what they could do, and they'll probably make it as simple as possible, and it makes it a non-entity. That's probably the worst case scenario in my mind.
Some like Mario Paint coloring book game. That's going to be it. Just tap to fill in colors automatically.
God, see, now it's going to turn into a discussion about why they haven't made Mario Paint Wii U yet. Which just seems like the most obvious great thing for them to do with that system.
Yeah, well, maybe mobile, man. That's maybe our one hope for Mario Paint coming back.
Oh, see, that's something I'd rather see on Wii U. Like, I don't think mobile's going to be the answer to all of their, you know, their issues and things like that. I still think there are ideas they're sitting on that they should be utilizing their console for, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Mario Maker is the closest thing we're going to get to that, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yep. Alright, well, I think that wraps it for us here, so thanks guys for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, as you can find links to in the description below. It's a good way to keep up to date on everything we post, and of course keep an eye on GameXplain.com for more on Nintendo going mobile and other things gaming as well. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.